Smoke covered the sky like a black blanket. The war on planet Altheron had turned the land into a graveyard of machines and bones. Blaster fire still echoed in the distance, but this part of the battlefield had gone quiet. Too quiet, Jira. Ah. Female alien warrior dragged her body across the hot ground. Her armor was broken, her leg bleeding, and her weapon nearly out of charge. She tapped the side of her helmet. Trying to reach her team, Unit 9. This is Gira. I'm alive. I need extraction. She whispered. No reply. Only static. Her people had left. They abandoned her. Her fingers trembled as she tried again. Please, anyone. I'm still here. Silence. Tears mixed with dust on her face. She wasn't ready to die not like this, not alone. She turned onto her back and looked at the red sky above. Flashes of her training passed through her mind. She was raised to be strong, silent, and loyal. But loyalty meant nothing if no one came back for you suddenly. A sound boots crunching over rocks. Jira raised her broken rifle, her vision blurry. An enemy. A human? She would fight to the end if she had to. Then she saw him. A man in human combat armor. Tall and dusty, with a calm face. He stopped a few steps away and looked down at her. His name tag read, Jacob. He didn't raise a weapon, he didn't shoot, he just stared. Puzzled, maybe even concerned, Jira tried to move, ready to attack, but her body gave out. She collapsed again. Her heart pounding. I don't want to die, she whispered. Not sure if she said it aloud. Jacob stepped closer and knelt beside her. She tensed, expecting pain, a bullet, or cold steel. Instead, his hand gently touched her wrist. He checked her pulse. You're hurt bad, he said softly. His voice was warm, too warm for a soldier in a war. Gira's eyes widened. Why? Aren't you killing me? She asked, her voice shaking. Jacob gave a small smile. I've seen enough death for one lifetime, he said. Then, without waiting, he gently lifted her up. Jira gasped in pain, but didn't resist. She didn't have the strength he carried. Her away from the open battlefield, the ground shook once from a distant explosion. Ash rained from the sky like snow. Jira tried to speak again, but her throat was dry. She blacked out in his arms. When she woke again, it was dark. She lay inside a small cave, wrapped in a human blanket. A tiny fire crackled nearby. Jacob sat close, cleaning a metal pan and humming softly to himself. The warmth of the fire touched her face. She had never felt such kindness, not from her people, not during the war. She shifted slightly and groaned in pain. Jacob turned quickly. You're awake, he said, walking over with a water bottle. Easy now. Sip slow. Jira took the water carefully, her hands still weak. She looked at him, confused. You saved me, Jacob nodded. Yeah, he replied. But I'm your enemy. Jacob shook his head. You're just someone who was left behind. That hit Jira harder than any bullet could. In that moment, something strange happened. For the first time since she was trained as a child warrior, Jira didn't feel like a weapon. She felt like a person. The fire cracked again. Outside, the storm of war raged on, but inside that cave, something new had begun, something more powerful than hatred, something far more dangerous than war, a bond. She watched Jacob for a long time. He looked tired, maybe broken, but there was peace in his eyes. The kind of peace only a man who chose kindness could have. Jira closed her eyes again, her head resting against the blanket. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel alone. Jira opened her eyes slowly. The soft light of the fire danced across the cave walls. She felt warmth on her skin. Warmth she didn't expect for a moment. She thought it was a dream. Then she heard footsteps, slow and heavy. Jacob entered the cave with dry wood in his arms. His armor was scratched and dirty, but his face looked calm. He didn't notice she was awake. He just knelt near the fire and began to feed the flames. Jira watched him quietly. He moved with care, not like a soldier guarding a prisoner. He moved like someone protecting a friend. It confused her. She tried to sit up, but gasped in pain. Jacob turned quickly and dropped the wood. "Hey, easy," he said, rushing to her side. "You're not ready to move yet?" Shira stared at him, eyes sharp. "I don't understand," she said slowly. Jacob raised his eyebrows. "What don't you understand?" "You saved me," she replied. "You carried me here, gave me warmth, water." Jacob sat back and nodded. "Yeah, I did. But I'm your enemy," she whispered. Jacob leaned forward, his voice quiet. "Not anymore." Jira narrowed her eyes. "Why?" Jacob looked at the fire. "Because when I found you, you weren't fighting, you were bleeding. Scared and left behind. I've been in that place too," he added, "and no one helped me." Jira blinked. She wasn't sure what to say. Her world had no stories of mercy, only strength, only survival. Jacob pulled a small metal box from his bag and opened it. Inside were bandages, cream, and tools. "Let me fix your leg again," he said. Jira hesitated, then nodded slowly. He moved gently, cleaning the wound with warm water. Jira clenched her jaw, holding back pain. But Jacob didn't rush. He worked like someone who truly cared. "Your people," he said after a moment. "They didn't come back for you." Jira looked away, her face hard. "No," she said quietly. "They said I was weak." Jacob wrapped the bandage tightly. "That's not weakness," he said. "That's betrayal." Her eyes snapped back to him. "You speak of betrayal like you know it." Jacob nodded slowly. "I do." He looked out toward the cave entrance where the wind howled. "I was part of a recon team," he began. "We were deep behind enemy lines when the mission went wrong. They left us, said extraction wasn't possible. I lost my men, my friends, and then I walked for 3 days until someone picked me up." Jira felt her chest tighten. She didn't expect to feel anything for a human, but hearing that pain. It was familiar. "I'm sorry," she said. It was the first time in her life she said those words to anyone, especially a human. Jacob gave a weak smile. Funny how pain teaches us the same lesson. No matter what world we come from, silence filled the cave. The fire cracked again, soft and slow, outside. The cold wind whispered across the rocks. Jira leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "I was trained to hate your kind, to see you as less than us, to kill without question." Jacob stirred the fire gently. "Guess I was trained to do the same." He said, "But maybe they were wrong." Jira turned to face him, her voice low. "Do you still trust your people?" Jacob thought for a moment. "I trust individuals," he said, "not uniforms." The words hit deep. She had never trusted anyone, not fully, but now. Lying in a cave tended by a human she was meant to hate, her heart whispered things her mind didn't understand. Jacob handed her a warm pouch of food. "Try this," he said. She sniffed it, uncertain. "It won't kill you," he chuckled. She took a slow bite. It was bland, but warm, and it filled the cold inside her belly. They sat in silence, side by side, the fire between them, 2 enemies sharing warmth. 2 warriors sharing pain, and something else too. Something new, trust. Not because they were from the same world, but because both had been broken, and both had chosen, for one night at least, to care. The sun never truly rose on Althorin. It only glowed behind the thick red clouds. But as the dim light reached the cave, Jira's eyes opened wide. Her leg still hurt, but her body felt stronger than before. She sat up slowly, wrapped in the human blanket. Jacob was already awake, watching the valley below from a high rock. He held his rifle steady, eyes sharp. Jira limped to him. "What's wrong?" she asked, Jacob didn't look back. "Your people are here," he said. 3 scout drones, fast and low, flying in search patterns. Jira froze. She thought her chest would crack open. "My people?" she whispered. Jacob nodded. "They're not coming to save you." Jira already knew that, but hearing it from a human made it worse. She scanned the sky, and soon she saw them sleek silver drones. With glowing blue eyes cutting through the air like knives, they made no sound. Just a cold hum that tickled the bones. "They're going to find us," Jacob said, loading his rifle. Jira swallowed hard. "They're checking for heat signals," she said. "Standard search pattern for abandoned soldiers." Jacob turned. "You mean survivors?" Jira shook her head. "No," she said quietly. "If they find me alive, they will finish the job." Jacob didn't ask why. He just handed her a pulse pistol. "Can you still shoot?" She nodded without thinking. Her training never left her fingers. Even after betrayal, they moved fast, out of the cave. Jacob showed her a place between the rocks, deep and narrow. They hid under dry roots and loose stones. Waiting, the first drone came close. Its scanner lit the rocks in cold blue light. Jira held her breath. Her hands trembled, but not from fear, from rage. Her people were hunting her like she was a wild animal, like she didn't matter, like she had no name, no past, no soul. Jacob whispered. "We can disable them one by one." Jira nodded. "When I say now, shoot high, left side." The drone hovered in front of them. Jira's finger pressed the trigger. "Now," she said. Jacob fired first. The bolt struck the drone's wing, sending sparks into the sky. Jira fired twice, center and lower panel. The drone exploded, crashing into the trees behind them. But that noise was a signal. The other 2 drones changed course, speeding toward their location. "Run." Jacob asked. "Fight," Jira said coldly. "I'm done hiding." They climbed a slope. Using high ground to their advantage, Jacob handed her a small, explosive charge. "Trap." Jira grinned. "Let's teach them we're not weak." As the second drone approached, Jira threw the charge into its path. Jacob shot the tip of the charge midair. It exploded perfectly, blinding the drone. Jira leaped out, aiming clean. One shot right between the glowing eyes. Gone. The third drone saw it all and pulled back. It didn't flee, it transmitted data. A red flash blinked from its core. "It sent our location," Jacob said. Jira's heart sank. "They'll send a kill team." They both sat down behind a large stone, breathing heavily. Jira looked at Jacob. "I thought I would feel sad," she said, "but I feel angry." "Good," Jacob said. "Use it." Jira touched her leg. The bandage was soaked in sweat, but held strong. She had fought today, not for orders, not for honor, but for herself, and for the human beside her, the only soul who had given her a second chance. As the wind picked up and the air turned colder, Jira leaned back and stared at the dark sky. "They won't stop," she whispered. Jacob looked at her. "Then we don't stop either." They weren't just survivors now. They were a team. Enemy worlds, shared pain, and one goal: to live, not for war, but for something better. Together, night fell over the mountain ridge. Cold winds swept through the rocks, carrying dust and the smell of smoke. Jira sat near the small fire Jacob had built, her weapon beside her. Her legs still hurt, but the pain reminded her that she was alive. Jacob sat across from her, sharpening a small blade. He didn't speak much, but his silence was not cold. It was peaceful. Jira looked at him, unsure how to begin. There were things inside her: memories, anger, fear, questions, and a strange feeling she couldn't name. She had never trusted anyone before, but this human. He was different. "Jacob," she said finally. He looked up, eyes soft. "Yes." "Why did you really help me?" He paused, then slowly placed the blade down. "I told you," he said. "I saw someone left behind, just like me. But why risk your life?" she asked. "Again, your people could have killed you for helping me." Jacob nodded slowly. "Because?" "I'm tired," he said. "Tired of this war, of killing, of being told who to hate." Jira blinked. No one from her world ever said things like that. She leaned back, staring at the fire. "I was raised in a war camp," she began. Jacob listened quietly. "They trained us from the age of 5. No emotions, no weakness, only orders. I never had a family, only command." Jacob's eyes stayed locked on hers. "No friends?" he asked. Jira shook her head. "If someone got too close, they were taken away." The flames danced between them, throwing light on scars neither of them could see. "My name wasn't even Jira until I turned 12, she said. "They gave us numbers, called us by rank. Jira was a name I stole from an old storybook." Jacob gave a sad smile. "It's a good name," he said. Jira looked down. "I don't know who I am without the war," she whispered. Jacob picked up a small rock and tossed it into the fire. "Maybe that's why we're here," he said. "To figure that out." Jira looked at him carefully. "What about you? What's your story?" Jacob didn't answer right away. He stared at the fire for a long moment, then spoke. "I was a farm boy," he said, "before all this. My parents grew crops on earth. Small town, quiet life." Jira tilted her head. "You were not a soldier." "Not at first," he said. "I joined when I was 20, thought I was doing something good. But war changes everything." His voice became distant. "I lost my team 6 months ago," he said. "We were sent on a mission, deep behind your lines. They told us we were expendable. Only I made it out." Jira's chest tightened. She saw something in his eyes, pain, real and deep. The kind of pain she knew well. "You were abandoned too," she said. Jacob nodded. "Yeah." Silence filled the space between them. But it wasn't empty. It was full of memories, regrets, and understanding. 2 soldiers who never asked to be enemies, now sitting together, alive. Jira looked at him again. "Do you hate my people?" Jacob shook his head. "I hate what war made them do, just like I hate what it made my people do." Jira thought for a long moment. "I never thought a human would say that." Jacob chuckled softly. "Most wouldn't," he admitted. "But I stopped listening to most a long time ago." Jira leaned her head back against the cave wall. She felt something strange inside her. Not fear, not anger, but peace. For the first time, she wasn't hiding who she was. And someone was still sitting beside her, listening. Understanding, she turned her head and looked at Jacob. "I don't want to go back," she said. "To my people, to that life." Jacob didn't respond right away. Then he said, "Then don't." Jira blinked. "It's not that simple." "Maybe not," he said. "But you have a choice now." She looked at the stars through the cave opening. They were small and distant, but tonight, they didn't look so cold. Jacob stood up and added more wood to the fire. "Get some rest," he said. "Tomorrow, we move before sunrise." Jira watched him for a moment, then slowly lay down. For the first time since the war began, she closed her eyes without fear and slept. The morning began with a deep rumble across the sky. The clouds above Althoron turned darker than before, swirling like angry smoke. Jira stepped out of the cave. Holding her rifle tightly, Jacob stood on a high ledge, his eyes locked on the horizon. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice sharp. Jacob pointed. "A storm's coming," he said. "Not just wind and dust, but acid rain." Yara's heart sank. Althoron's storms were deadly. Rain that burned skin, winds that tore ships apart. If they didn't find cover fast, they would die out in the open. Jacob quickly packed supplies into his bag. "We need to move now," he said. Jira nodded and followed, her injured legs slowing her down, but she didn't complain. She had survived. Worse, and Jacob didn't walk too far ahead, he stayed close. Always checking on her, as the wind picked up, the red dust turned into sharp grains. It hit their faces like tiny knives. Gira pulled up her scarf and covered her head. Jacob's helmet visor dropped into place. They moved fast through rocky paths and between broken trees. Every few steps, Gira had to stop and breathe. Her leg throbbed, but she refused to fall. Jacob spotted an old wreck in the distance. It was a crashed transport ship, half buried under rubble. Over there, he pointed. Gira looked at it and nodded. Let's hope the walls still hold. They reached the wreck just as the first drops of acid rain began to fall. It sizzled as it hit the rocks, steam rising. From every surface, Jacob pulled the metal door open with both hands, and they rushed inside. The inside was cold, dark, and smelled of rust and old fire, but it was shelter. Jacob dropped the bag and turned on a small, portable light. It glowed softly, just enough for them to see. Gira leaned against the wall, panting. Her skin was wet from sweat and the few drops that had touched her armor. A thin burn had already started to appear. Jacob noticed it and reached for the med. "Kit, sit down," he said. She hesitated, then obeyed. He gently cleaned the small burn and applied cream over it. "You're always helping me," Gira said quietly. Jacob smiled without looking up. "You'd do the same." Gira wasn't. Sure she would have, at least, not before she met him. The wind outside roared louder. Metal screamed as the storm hit the wreck hard. Rain splashed against the walls, burning holes in weak metal inside. Jacob checked for holes and used old fabric to block the cold air. Gira curled up in the corner, her eyes half closed. Then she noticed Jacob was shivering. His jacket was wet, and he had used the last of the dry blankets for her leg. Without speaking, she reached out and pulled him down beside her. He was surprised. "Gira, you'll freeze," she said simply. He laughed softly. "So will you." She didn't answer. She just leaned her head on his shoulder. For a moment, they sat in silence. Only the sound of the storm filled the air. Then she whispered, "No one ever did this for me." Jacob looked at her. "No one ever sat with you during a storm?" "No one ever cared if I froze," she said. His jaw tightened. "You're not alone now." She didn't reply. But her eyes grew wet. She didn't wipe the tears. For once, it felt safe to let them fall. He gently pulled the edge of the jacket. Over her shoulder, they huddled together, sharing what little warmth they had. The storm outside shook the world. But inside that wreck, something quiet and powerful was growing. Not just survival, but connection. Something real, as her breathing slowed. Gira whispered, "Why are you still here?" Jacob looked down at her. "Because I don't leave people behind." That night, the acid rain poured like fire. The wind screamed like wild beasts, but inside, two former enemies sat side by side, not fighting, not fearing, just surviving. Together, the storm had passed. But the wrecked ship still groaned under the weight of soaked metal and burned wires. Jacob stepped outside first, checking the sky. The clouds were moving, but the rain had stopped. Gira followed slowly. Her body sore, but stronger than before. She looked at the sky and breathed deeply. It smelled like smoke and rust, but it was better than the poison inside the wreck. "We can't stay here," Jacob said, tightening the straps of his backpack. "They'll be back," Gira nodded. "I know," as they walked through the hills. The air grew colder. Gira's legs ached, but she didn't complain. She had stopped feeling weak, not because her wounds were healed, but because Jacob treated her like she mattered. They moved quietly through the burned forest. Trees stood like bones, black and broken. Gira held her weapon tight. Always watching the skies, Jacob walked beside her. One hand on his rifle. After 2 hours, they saw something on a cliff. It was tall, narrow, and glowing faintly blue. "A beacon," Jacob whispered. Jira narrowed her eyes. That's a human signal tower. Jacob nodded. Still working? Maybe? If we can activate it, it might call for help. Jira stopped, her heart heavy. Help means more humans, more soldiers. Jacob looked at her carefully, and it means a way out. Jira lowered her head. I don't know if I belong anywhere anymore. Jacob stepped closer. You belong where you choose to. She didn't answer, but she followed him toward the beacon. The climb was rough, steep rocks and loose gravel. At one point, Jira slipped. Jacob caught her arm before she fell. He pulled her up with a quiet grunt. You okay? Jira nodded. Thanks. At the top, they found the beacon half buried in dust. Its antenna was bent, and the screen cracked, but the light was blinking, a sign of life. Jacob wiped the dust away and opened the control panel. Jira watched as he connected wires and rewrote the code. Can you fix it? Maybe, Jacob said, if I can power it from this battery pack. Jira stepped back. She felt uneasy. Sending a signal meant they would be found. By humans or her own kind or both. Jacob looked up at her. You can walk away now if you want. I won't stop you. Jira stared at him. I'm not going anywhere. He smiled and clicked the final switch. The beacon let out a soft hum. Then a loud beep echoed through the valley. A blue light shot into the sky like a glowing pillar. It's done, Jacob said. Now we wait. Jira sat down beside the beacon. The wind brushed against her face. She looked at Jacob and asked, Do you think they'll come? He shrugged. I think someone always listens, eventually. They sat in silence for a while. Then Jira spoke. If your people come, what will you tell them? That you saved my life, Jacob said. That we fought together. Jira's voice was low. And if my people come? Jacob looked her in the eyes. I won't let them hurt you. Jira blinked. Her chest ached again, not from pain, but something else. No one had ever spoken for her before. No one had stood between her and danger. Until now. The sun dipped lower, and the sky turned orange. Suddenly, a soft beep came from the beacon. Jacob rushed to the panel. We've got a ping, he said. Someone received our signal. Jira's heart pounded. She stood up and looked at the sky. 3 dots appeared on the horizon, ships, fast and silver. One looked like a human rescue vessel. The other 2 were alien crafts. Her people. Jira gripped her weapon. Jacob stood beside her, calm and steady. We faced them together, he said. Jira nodded. Together, the beacon pulsed again, sending one final light into the darkening sky. And as the ships drew closer, Jira knew something deep in her heart. She was no longer the warrior who followed orders. She was no longer the soldier who fought blindly. She had found something stronger than loyalty. She had found choice, and in Jacob, she had found hope. The ships were getting closer. One flew steady and slow with a white light blinking on its wings, a human rescue craft. The other 2 were sharper, in shape, darker, and moved faster. Jira's people. They came with speed, but not with peace. Jira and Jacob stood on the cliff beside the beacon. Both held their weapons low, but ready. Neither spoke. There was nothing left to say as the ships hovered above them. Wind whipped their clothes and dust flew across the rocks. The human ship circled slowly, scanning the area. A voice came through Jacob's radio. This is Captain Rhodes of Earth Defense. Identify yourselves. Jacob clicked the radio. This is Sergeant Jacob Miles, survivor of Recon Unit 9. I'm with an alien combatant, wounded, no longer a threat. She's under my protection. There was silence for a few seconds. Then came the reply. Stand by, Sergeant. At the same time, a loud mechanical screech came from the alien crafts. Above, a voice echoed in Jira's ear, harsh, familiar, cold. Jira of Unit Bladewing. Surrender immediately. You are accused of treason and desertion. Jira's jaw clenched. She didn't answer. Jacob turned to her. "What are you going to do?" She looked up, her eyes full of fire. "I'm done following them. I choose my life." The alien ship dropped a small landing ramp. 2 soldiers stepped out, tall and cold in black armor. They pointed their weapons at her from a distance. "Step forward now, or face death," one shouted. Jacob raised his rifle. Gira placed a hand on his arm. "Not yet," she said. She stepped forward slowly, her head high. "I am not your enemy," she called out. "I was left to die. And this human saved me. I will not return to chains." One of the soldiers moved closer. "You are property of the military," he growled. "You have no right to speak." Gira's eyes narrowed. "Then you will hear my silence." She turned and walked back to Jacob. Her message was clear. She had chosen. The human ship lowered a platform. Captain Rhodes himself stepped out. His eyes scanned Gira, then looked at Jacob. "You sure about this, Sergeant?" Jacob nodded. "She saved my life more than once. She's not our enemy." Rhodes looked back at the alien soldiers. "You will not harm her while under human protection," he said firmly. "Any action against her will be seen as an act of war." The alien soldiers paused. They didn't expect resistance, not from humans, and definitely not from one of their own choosing to stay behind. Gira stepped beside Jacob and said loudly, "I choose freedom. I choose to live with honor, not orders. I choose the man who saved me." The alien commander growled and turned. "This one is no longer ours," he said. "Let her die with the humans." The 2 ships pulled away, rising into the sky and disappearing into the clouds. "Captain?" Rhodes gave a slow nod. "Get aboard," he said. "You both need medical attention." Inside the human ship, the air smelled clean. Gira sat beside Jacob in the back cabin. Her wounds were being treated by a soft-voiced medic. Jacob rested quietly, eyes closed, a small smile on his face. Gira looked at him and whispered, "Thank you." Jacob opened one eye. "For what?" "For everything," she said. "For not leaving me," he smiled. "You never leave someone who's fighting to live." The ship flew high above the red world of Altheron. Far below, the storms still raged, but inside that ship, 2 souls had found peace, not because the war had ended, but because they had chosen to stop being part of it. Gira leaned her head against the wall. For the first time in her life, she felt safe, not as a soldier, but as a person. She looked at Jacob. "Again, what happens now?" He looked out the window and said, "Whatever we decide," and for both of them, that was enough.